welcome to Soul Symbols. My name is Shelley. I'm a writer, an astrologer, and a card reader, and I'd like to welcome you to my channel. Happy Tuesday. It is How to Tarot Tuesday, and what that is it is a weekly video vlog post that I post here on my channel, where every week we talk about one of the 78 card tarot. Today we will be talking about the Page of Swords. And what we do is in the beginning part of the video, you see the Page of Swords from the Rider-Waite-Smith Tarot, and then I choose two other tarot decks that I think best represent the meaning of this card. The beginning of the video, we talk about the meanings of the card. We look at the symbolism and we talk about the expression of the card in a reading. And then the second half of the video, you, the viewer, get to choose from the three tarot decks, and we go ahead and do a quick card spread to see how the card manifests in your life. If you ever want to jump straight to your read, the timestamps are listed in the description box below, as are the names and the authors of the deck that I use. Now, I will also be clarifying this deck with a oracle deck that I will be getting to in a moment. But basically what we do is we talk about the symbolism of the card, and we go ahead and do a reading to say, okay, how does this card manifest in your life currently? Now, you do not need to be an authority in tarot to watch this video. If you've done tarot reads for a long time, you know this is just another interpretation of the different meanings. I highly encourage anybody who watch or follow my channel, please leave a comment if you feel like there's an interpretation that we did not address. But I love doing the How to Tarots because it just really, every single time I've thrown cards for many years, and I seem to get like a new interpretation every time. When we go through the How to Tarot video, I talk about all the interpretations that I've encountered with the card. And I really do love it when other readers or other card enthusiasts jump in and leave a message. So please feel free, if you're so inclined, you know, if there's something that we left out, if there's an interpretation that you've had of the card that we didn't touch on, you know, please leave a comment because I love that. That's how we all learn, and that's the purpose of these videos. But to go ahead and get started, we're going to go ahead and talk about the Page of Swords today. And the Page of Swords is such a lovely card. I'm so excited because last week we talked about the Ten of Swords, and just like the Three of Swords or the Five of Swords, it's like one of those really toughy cards that you don't like talking about. And the Page is just kind of like a break in the energy. It's kind of like it's like a juvenile kind of nuance. It's a nubile kind of fresh way to experience communication. And it's a wonderful thing to kind of break the tension of the Ten of Swords. But when you look at the Page of Swords, the first thing that you see a young person, and you kind of see they have long hair and they're wearing a tunic. So you definitely see someone who's kind of confident, someone who's a little bit brazen, right? You see the wind blowing in the background, and you can kind of tell by both the clouds and the way the tree seems to be blowing in the wind, and the way the person's hair is kind of caught up in the wind. You also see a flock of birds that look like they're out of formation. So it looks like a very it looks like a time of change, or you get a strong sense of like the winds of change blowing. The other thing is that you see this person is it's a young person holding a sword very, very astutely, you know, almost confidently. And he's standing kind of on a little bit of a perch. It's not quite a ledge, but it's a perch. And you see that he's in the midst of all of the action. So what you see here is you see a young person who is confident with their sword. He's confident with his words, right? So, you know, when you look at pages, the first meaning that you think of is you think of using your mind. You think of using your words, right? And it's almost like, you know, it's funny. I always think of a toddler, you know, not in a bad sense, but when you get, you've heard of the phrase terrible twos, right? When a toddler, when a little one is like 1 to 2 years old, when you think about it, when you are a baby and you're learning the English language, maybe you're learning another language, maybe you're French or German, or maybe you're learning language in your dialect for the first time. That is a big challenge. That's a big challenge. And when you look at the terrible twos, or quote unquote the terrible twos, the first word you learn is no. No, I'm not going to do this. No. And what I kind of think of is, I think of the Page of Swords with that, because it's like the power of your words, right? You're understanding a language. You're understanding the clout that your verbal expression has. You're learning the power of what you say and how it affects others, and how it proclaims your truth. So a lot of times the first and foremost meaning is, it's a little bit of a challenging card, because again, you see so much movement with the blowing of the wind, and you see you see the page standing strong in the face of a current of wind, right? It's almost like he's standing up and being like, listen to me, I'm talking here, I'm saying something important. But the first thing that you think of is, you think of someone who's new, not necessarily new at language. It could be a child who's learning language or learning their verbal power. It could be a young adult, and actually when we get into the second deck, we'll talk about that. It could be a young adult who's learning how to write or learning the power of their words. But most of the time it's learning, it's someone who is strong with their voice, but they're not seasoned in the way that they say things. They're still learning how to communicate things effectively. So a lot of times it does mean analyzing. Sometimes it can mean analyzing a new problem. It can be an adult or older person who's looking at a problem in a new way, right? Looking at it like when you think of yourself as a toddler learning a language for the first time, overcoming problems in an analytical way. It can be using logic or reason, but it's a very nubile or very new way of looking at a problem. Maybe you're trying to find a new solution to an old problem. A lot of times it can be developing an idea or a plan. Or it can be studying facts. The other time that I see this is, I see the Page of Swords a lot of times when you're studying facts about a new subject. Like, for instance, I can use myself as an example. I just had a watcher post a comment saying, because I've posted several videos about A.E. Waite, who's the author of tarot. Also, you hear about the Thoth tarot. But the history of the tarot goes back even further with Oswald Worth. And I just had a reader post a comment saying, well, what about Oswald Worth? He was a French author and an occultist. So a lot of times I look at the Page of Swords of like, okay, if you're researching something for the first time, you don't just, I think of it really in a modern context as, if you don't want to just go to Wikipedia, or you don't want to go to just whatever's on the internet. You actually want to research this a little deeper, right? And I am very experienced with tarot, but I honestly have not researched Oswald Worth too much. I am fluent in French, so I am looking forward to studying that. But this would be a real Page of Swords moment for me, or you as the watcher, because anytime you see the Page of Swords, you think of, I want to go, I'm a novice at studying this, right? This is new information. What it's kind of telling you is that you're new to learning about this subject and it's fresh to you. So you probably would start with Wikipedia, or you would start with like a kind of scratching the surface. The Page of Swords is scratching the surface of a subject. It's not going real deep into it. And that's a real deep meaning of it. And you see that with the birds as well. The bird symbolism, when I see birds, and you'll actually see birds with both the queen and the King of Swords, is birds are messengers. If you've ever watched Harry Potter, they send messages through owls, which are a symbol of knowledge or information, of intellect. But birds, they do, just like carrier pigeons, they carry messages. And the fact that you see birds in a broken formation, it when I look at the Page of Swords, when you see birds, because a lot of times you see birds in like a V formation, right? When they go south for the winter, they form a V. In the Page of Swords, you see not a V shape. You see something that looks like kind of a broken formation. What that kind of tells me is that, again, this is kind of the start of a project that hasn't quite taken form yet. It's a start of a project that hasn't quite gotten its feet. It can be an intellectual project. Sometimes it can be technology. Maybe you're starting a new business. I do see the Page of Swords a lot with security, because what happens is a very popular field among not even millennials, but really more like Gen Z. I'm going to sneeze, pardon me. Oh, excuse me. I saw that coming. Oh, ow. Excuse me. Sorry. Allergies. But what I kind of see is a lot of times when I see the Page of Swords, I see this can be someone who is fresh out of high school and going into college. Either that, or it could be someone out of college who's starting in the professional field, because a lot of times it does rule technology. Page of Swords really means tech, because it means thought. It can mean text messages. It can mean social media. It can mean DMs, direct messages. But a lot of times, and we're going to get into that a little bit more with the second deck, a lot of times it can be one of the most popular technology fields. And just to give you a little background, more than 10 years ago, I got my Bachelor of Arts in English with a minor in technology and discourse, which means that I spent about 3 years studying the way that the internet works for creating websites. And I also learned a little bit about cybersecurity. Now, cybersecurity in 2008 was well different than it is in 2020, but cybersecurity is one of the biggest growing fields. And if you are coming out of high school, coming out of college, the Page of Swords can definitely mean that, because what it is I see the Page of Swords as meaning possibly a career that's in cybersecurity, or that you work with technology. But what it is that you're still learning. All of the pages are young. And what I love about the second and third decks is they depict the pages as children, because it really is kind of that element. Knights are more of the young adult, maybe 20s to 26, 28, maybe early 30s. But the pages are really, I think of the pages as those you haven't experienced it yet kind of things. And I work a day job, and believe me, I have 20 plus years in both of my professions, both in English and technology, and also 20 years in my other job, which I will not disclose here for privacy. But I've learned in that is that anytime I see a page, it's one of those experiences that you've learned for the first time. And the benefit of learning something for the first time is you see the way it really works. And one of the most popular fields for swords is technology. It's the written word, it's technology, it's emails, it's cybersecurity, and cybersecurity is a big field with this. But what I kind of see is that cybersecurity has a myriad of different technology, has loopholes based on technology, right? What kind of, do you use a VPN? Do you have a firewall? What kind of security system do you use? Do you use a video editing system that leaves you open to people trying to leave, spammy comments on your YouTube channel? Stuff like that. Stuff like that. But what it is that when you encounter something that is kind of simple for the first time, I think of that as being the Page of Swords. So I also see it as someone who is maybe in cybersecurity, but they're new at it. right? And what teaches you the nuances of something, right? And again, I've in my day life, in my professional life, 20 plus years, I look at there's flags. Okay, if I see this flag, I know that this is going on either on a technology level or a fraud level. But that's really what you think of when you see the Page of Swords. It's it's an opportunity to learn the facts from a very, like, a first time, from a novice perception. It's the first time you're encountering this problem, and what'll happen is, after encountering that problem and learning how to deal with it, you're going to graduate to being the Knight of Swords, and then eventually the Queen and the King, right? And it's good to be the Queen, it's good to be the King. Now, the other thing is that sometimes it can be in learning and teaching. I do see this. This is definitely the card of text messages and direct messages. Anything that is internet related. Social media. If you are, if you're beginning on TikTok, if you're beginning on Vine, if you're beginning, if you still, oh God, this is antiquated, but this is how old I am. If you still have a MySpace page, if you have a YouTube page, these are text messages to people, and they are also text, digital presentation on the digital realm. What I see when I see the Page of Swords, and believe me, this card is notoriously known as being the internet stalker. If you have someone who's watching your internet, or if you're posting messages through the internet, be that through any social media platform, whatever name you give it, if you still have a Twitter account, if you still have a Facebook account, these are messages through that forum. Because what it is that when you look at the Page of Swords, it's someone who's confident with their sword, but they're still a young person. So it's kind of like the social media platform is doing everything for you. And we forget that a lot of times. The social media platform's doing everything for you. You can get pissed as heck at it when it's not working. You know, and believe me, as a YouTube content provider, I post alerts on Instagram. I post alerts on my my Facebook. They, when it's your personal, it's your profile. When it's your professional, it's your Facebook. Sorry, what do they call it? There's names. That's the other thing that plays into this. Whatever terminology, when you see this card come up, sometimes it can be all that terminology. If you work for the government, this is acronym central. If it's Automatic Broadcasting Company, it's ABC. If it's if you're on YouTube and you're posting on your profile, you're posting on your personal profile. If you're posting on your I'm forgetting it. I'm going to remember the moment I finish this video. I'm sorry, guys. I posted a video yesterday, so I'm a little burnt out for this, which is the irony. I am in Page of Swords energy today because I'm not speaking right. But it's those, what it is that, when you come to, it really means social media. It means social media. The Page of Swords is really about those little posts that you make. The other thing that I get is that I chose I went with a special oracle deck. That this deck is really meant more for relationship reads, but it's the messages contained are like as if it's almost like you speaking your mind as if you didn't have a filter on your thoughts, and that's the Page of Swords energy. Real quick, I'm kind of obsessed with this, and I've talked about this in other reads. Like, I just posted a review of my oracle decks for psychology and self-help yesterday. If you get a chance, please check out that video. It's here on my playlist. But I've got a Bachelor of Arts in English with a subcategory of technology and discourse and another subcategory of ethics. So what I've studied and what I'm obsessed with, which plays into my majors, is that I am fascinated with the way that social media has evolved, and I've also I'm fascinated with the way that it influences us psychologically. And what I just real quickly to go into it, because it really plays into the Page of Swords, because anytime you post a post, when you post on Instagram, when you post on Facebook, when you post on Vine, when you post on, which Vine is no longer there, MySpace is still there, it's very antiquated, TikTok, Twitter, what are doing is you're putting yourself out there publicly. You're putting a post out there that expresses you, and you see the confidence in this person. You're putting a post out saying, this is who I am, this is what I represent, right? And I've done a study. I've never written a paper about this. I'm about to write a paper about this because I'm really obsessed with it. When technology evolved at the turn of the aughts, when we hit year 2000, and anyone who was born in the 70s, 80s, really up into the early 90s, you are a generation of the bridge of the technology, where you remember film photography, and you remember flip phones and the low resolution photographs. But what happened was it really springboarded with MySpace. And what it is MySpace, before the 90s, before 95 really, in order for your face to be out there, you needed to be a movie star or a TV star or a radio star, right? You had to be a musician, an actor, or a television star, because your face would be broadcast by the major broadcasting stations. With the advent of MySpace, you could take photographs taken with the really piss-ass poor resolution of your flip phone, which I always laugh at, because anytime you watch the movie Tomb Raider, like the original one with Angelina Jolie, where she's using her flip phone to scan the orb on, she's sitting on this boat in the middle of Shanghai somewhere. Like, first off, how in the hell are you getting any type of satellite reception? Second of all, the flip phone resolution on photographs, and I'm old enough where I've done blog posts on photo resolution, because I'm the archivist for my family, and I actually have film negatives from 1912. I know for a fact that the flip phone resolution on phones is like the size of a postage stamp. It's really not large. But I still laugh at it. It's probably something on CinemaSins. Please check it out. But what happens is, with the advent of MySpace, you created a page that is representing you. And that was the dawn of social media. MySpace was the dawn of social media, because you were able to present yourself the way you wanted to be presented, right? It was no longer the picture that your mom took of you on a film camera, sitting on the phone with a cord, the radio phone in the kitchen in the middle. The way that people take pictures of you became digital because it was on your phone. It was low resolution, but you could take pictures of whomever you wanted. Then you could curate that. With the advent of MySpace, you were able to create a brand. Instead of just being the hodgepodge of pictures of how people perceived you. And I actually have a whole theory on this. If you ever care about how someone sees you, look at a picture that they took of you. Look at a picture that they took of you, because how you're presented in that picture is what they think of you. And I know that sounds crazy, because if you've ever had a friend take a picture of you, if they care enough to take a pretty picture of you, or if you've ever handed your phone to someone who doesn't care and said, hey, can you take a picture of me? The picture that came out is how that stranger saw you. If it's your friend of your boyfriend, that's how they saw you. Either that, or it's their perception of you as a photographer. Your best friend, when they took a picture of you, if they thought, oh, this is how you look pretty, and you look at it and you think, oh God, I look like crap, your friend is seeing you in a different light. The way your boyfriend takes a picture of you, or your love interest or your crush. When you created a MySpace page back in the day, you were acknowledging the fact that, okay, I'm not a radio star, I'm not a movie star, I'm not a television star, but I can show the world how I want to be perceived. And you can control that perception by the pictures that you take of yourself. And then that evolved from 95 to the year 2000, and in the early 2000s, and you wonder why we're so why women are so obsessed with makeup. It's because everybody has a flip phone. And granted, in a ethical sense, you have video cameras that can document injustice. Just about every single one of the fights for, Black Lives Matters, for, ethnicity fights, for political rights, someone doing something shady, someone robbing a bank. Everyone has a camera on their phone. But long story short, circling back, the Page of Swords is that perception. It is the control of your brand. But it's you controlling your brand as a young person. So this generation, and it really kind of started with millennial moving forward, the reason that women, and I think, are so obsessed with makeup right now is because everybody has a camera, and the perception of their friend or their frenemy, I can take a picture of you looking like crap and I can tag you on it within 3 seconds. And that's a very strong Page of Swords energy. I know that when I was going through high school, I used to say, if you did something stupid, it would circle the school by lunchtime. Like if you did something stupid at 9 a.m., everyone would know about it by 12 noon. Real quick short story. It was funny. I was in the day before phone cameras. It was like the turn of the century Matrix phones. You had cell phone usage, but it didn't have cameras in it. And I remember one time it was the satellite dish bang kind of thing. And in earth science, we were allowed to use open flame. And one of the most popular girls in my high school had set her bangs on fire. True story. We were in earth science class and we had aluminum pans of water, and we were supposed to light a match, which by today's standards is not allowed anymore, but back in the day when I was in high school it was allowed. She set her bangs on fire, and we had pans of water, and it was funny, my best friend was sitting next to me and we were in those wraparound desks. She grabbed the pan of water, and of course the pan of water torqued in the middle and hit me instead of the girl with the hair on fire. So what I did is I dragged the desk that I was trapped in over to the chalkboard erasers, and I used the 2 chalkboard erasers to bang out. I know this sounds crazy. This really happened. There's no proof of it because we did not have film. It was a film camera era. I'm that old. But I put out the fire in the girl's hair, and but it was one of those telephone things where someone talking to someone else, it circulated the school by noon. And believe it or not, I got hit with the water, so I had to change clothes into my gym uniform, so I looked like a total reject. I was walking around with my Converse All-Stars, my Chuck Taylors, my plaid Chuck Taylors, because it was the 90s. And my gym uniform. So I looked like a high school convict. But I was walking around the school kind of squishing because the water did hit my shoes that I could not change out of. And everyone was patting me on the back because I had put out the girl's hair. And she was the most popular girl in school. But I used chalkboard eraser to extinguish her hair. But it's almost like that. And I'm sorry, long story. Page of Swords. It is that quick acceleration of information. So it's branding, it's the way that you present yourself. If you have people who are out to get you that can take crappy ass pictures of you, because we all have cell phone cameras now, and it's you wanting to keep your face perfect because at any time someone can take a picture of you, and you want to reinforce your brand. You want to reinforce your perception of you. The other thing that it is that it is that circling the school. It's like it's telephone. So a lot of times Page of Swords can be information that's gotten wrong. You know how with telephone, the game, it's one person whispering into the ear into another, whispering into the ear of another, and somehow the story gets distorted by the time it gets to the end. So a lot of times it's that note passing kind of energy. The other thing about the 90s, which I grew up in, I was a teenager, the 90s, you had those little folded notes where you would hand off to people. If you watch 16 Candles, it's the same thing. It's that folded note that gets into the hands of the wrong person. So a lot of times it can be misinformation. It can also be, you know, hearing from a friend of a friend of a friend, which really plays into the pager stalkerism of the Page of Swords. Maybe you're following someone online. Maybe you're trying to figure out what they're doing. The other thing is that it's very clandestine. It's kind of following someone online, but trying to discern what they're doing. So a lot of times I do take this as the crush energy. Like if you're following your crush and they put something up on social media and you read all into it. You read all into it. Like, why did they post that? What do they mean? Are they talking about me? Are they talking about them? Are they seeing someone else? It's definitely, and you do with the wind blowing. It's almost like you getting the information wrong, right? It's you getting the information wrong, or it is that kind of high school being all up in someone's business. It's funny, I also think of this, there's a saying that my sister and I use all the time. It's probably pretty antiquated. This might go back to the 80s, where we talk about being all up in the flavor and not knowing, being all up in the ice cream and not even knowing the flavor. Sometimes it can be you being up in someone else's business. I know 2020, if you're watching this at the time this video posts, it's been a really hard year. So honestly, sometimes it can be you just like, even if you're an older person, it can be you being a real juvenile you being in a juvenile energy where maybe you're drinking a glass of wine and you're watching every single comment on a controversial Facebook thread where you're like, ooh, someone's being, someone's being scrappy, someone's saying this, right? It can be that. Basically, it's you just really being kind of nosy, right? And it's almost like you going to the lower octave. If you are a more mature person, maybe you do. And again, I usually manifest as the Queen of Swords, but if I'm feeling Page of Swords, a lot of times I'm overanalyzing things, I'm being nosy, I'm being childish. And that really plays into our second deck. I went with the Witch's Tarot by Ellen Dugan. I love the fact that she does depict the pages as young people, but I love the fact that she uses kind of a young adult, and he wields he wields the sword the same way that the page in the traditional tarot does, but what I love about this card is that he kind of has a medal around his neck that represents an eagle. And again, we talked about birds. Later, when we look at the Queen of Swords and the King of Swords, you see one bird very directly flying away. And what that is that's professional kind of correspondence. Very mature. They know what they're saying. They're being very direct in it. It's funny, when I look at the Queen or King, especially when I look at the King of Swords, I think of that almost being like the inauguration of a president. It's someone who's very, very carefully written out their words, and they're very concise. They're mature. They know what to say. They're seasoned. Right? But when you look at a page, they're not seasoned. This is someone who's new at communication, but what I think is beautiful is that this deck in particular, you see him standing on top of the same kind of mountain scene, which I think is like a correlation between the traditional tarot. But what I love is that with the eagle, it's almost like I do think of. I'll be honest. I think of those big gold chains that you see a lot of like rappers wear, and it's like a sign of it's a little bit immature, but I don't mean this in an insulting way. It's being very very completely devout to something. So a lot of times when I see the Page of Swords, sometimes you can use this in a more modern context where maybe someone's a big sports fan and maybe they don't have all the facts, but they'll be like, your team sucks, look at me, I'm an Eagles fan, look at my Eagles chain, I kind of see it as that energy. Sometimes it can be a little brusque, it can be a little blunt. Unlike the Page of Wands, when I think the Page of Wands, I think Sagittarian, and I think being blunt in an energetic way. With the Page of Swords, I see it being blunt in a verbal way, like a mental way. Like, I know what I'm talking about, even though you just went to Wikipedia and that's the only knowledge that you have, right? And it's not a bad thing. You're passionate about what you're talking about, but you may not have all the facts. So sometimes the Page of Swords is going off at the mouth, but before you've really thought everything through, you're just you're scratching the surface, right? You're at the tip of the iceberg, right? You haven't really learned everything that there is to know about it yet. What I love about the Witch's Tarot is that this isn't quite a child. He's more like a preteen. I kind of see like a 13-year-old. And I love that energy because, again, both of these persons look like they're 13 to 15 years old, which is really the development time. So the other thing is that this might pertain to a child. It could be an air sign, or it could be the education of a child. It definitely resonates with elementary education. So sometimes when it comes into a read, and especially in 2020, maybe you're helping with the education of a child. Maybe you have to be a tutor. I do also think of Montessori schools because I kind of think of education in a sense of following a curriculum that serves your knowledge, because the Page of Swords is they're an open-minded child. They're someone who likes to learn. So it's not a negative energy, not by any stretch. It's a good energy, but what it is it's a very busy mind. The other thing is with Montessori schools or with homeschooling, because that's another sign of the page, is that it means that you have someone who's very open-minded, and the way that if you've ever had to teach a child at home, which this also can pertain to, maybe you're struggling, and when we get to the page in reverse, we'll see that. If you're trying to teach someone at home, it's really based on that child's perception. And this perception is really at the most formative years of a child. This person is anywhere from 9 to 15 years old. And it really does mean elementary school. Elementary school can mean those real formative years. Again, it's the years that you use probably the most crucial information. But the other thing is that it's very structured in the sense that it can be a person or a child who's moving out of their family environment into the environment of other peers that are their same age. And so it plays a lot into culture. We talked about how, sometimes this definitely means either you are being influenced by other people your own age, or that you're being influenced on a very core level of what you understand to be true, right? Because these are the age that you learn writing, that you learn cursive, that you learn, basic skills. Anything elementary school, maybe it's basic math. Sometimes this card comes up that maybe if you were never strong in a certain subject like math or spelling, that you might have to revisit it. Either that or you're helping a child. It can definitely represent a very bright child, maybe someone who's good at English, good at expressing themselves. Or it could be someone who desperately wants to believe in something, who is searching for their kin, searching for their clan, right? Because I see that with this card, with the, the emblem that he holds around his neck. The other thing is that I do see this because it's predominantly male, and when we get into the third deck, we'll see more of the feminine kind of spin on it. But a lot of times it can be, I take a lot of stock in the importance of young men who are in those formative years, because I think us as humans, as a culture, we don't give enough attention to what young men need as they're going through their rite of passage. I do think that we're facing an epidemic where there's not a lot of positive male role models for those young men who are like 13 to 18. It's almost like they get forgotten or skipped over. One of my really good writer friends, her name is Gail. She wrote a really great book for young men who are coming of age, who are in their puberty. They're going through their adolescence. They're moving from being being a child to being a young man. And it said, I think it's called Life in the Time of Cats. But it's a wonderful book, and it talks about that real primitive kind of time and the expectations that are expected of young men, because I think that's something that's really ignored. And the other thing is that there's this perception that young men don't like to read. I've met so many young, really, really bright, intelligent people. So a lot of times the Page of Swords can be someone who is very young and bright and who's very thoughtful and intellectual. And it also is a great pointer to someone who might be good at math or science, or someone who might be good at the engineering field. It can also be someone who's not real expressive emotionally. It can be someone who prefers to express themselves verbally, or later when we get into the verse, it could be someone who has trouble expressing themselves with words. A lot of times it's a call to be truthful. It's kind of a call to face the facts. You see those books that are KISS, which is Keep It Simple, Stupid. And it's not calling anyone stupid. It's just saying that sometimes I see this when the answer is so simple, it's right in front of you, but you're almost thinking more complicated, right? It never fails. Sometimes when I'm in my daily life trying to find a solution to something, I'll go through A through Z, and then I'll realize, oh gosh, it was this simple, silly kind of preliminary thing, turn off, autosave, or turn off this. It's kind of like that. It definitely can play into technology. A lot of times it can mean, get to the point, I think of just the facts, ma'am. And the other thing is, I think of being kind of blunt with it, kind of being like, okay, you're typing the wrong password, or you have your caps lock on, turn your caps lock off. It's kind of like it's almost like you being a little bit like, you've heard of children, the way that children can come up and be like, how they say out of the mouth of babes, sometimes the most simple solution is it. Sometimes you have to just say it simply. And if you're being a little blunt, that's okay. The other thing that I kind of see with this is that if you do follow like a sports team or a certain religion, sometimes you might be being a little like dogmatic in that, like, well, believe in God, or, go Chiefs, or, something like that. It can be an expression of that. So if you're looking at it in a relationship read, or it's a double-edged sword, pun intended. If you're looking at a tweet and trying to interpret it, it could be someone who's just being a little bit kind of like, well, go team, They're being a little bit, they're being a little bit blunt and direct and not really creative, because they're sticking with the status quo, or they're sticking with their belief system. The other thing is that sometimes it can be exposing what's hidden, but it can be exposing what's hidden in kind of a blunt way. Again, a lot of times it's you kind of saying things like a child. I'll give a good example. One time, and I do think of this card when I think about this memory. one time I called the post office because I was inquiring about a lost package, and I was trying to give them a very wide berth because I know that they work really hard, and I wasn't trying to give them a hard time. But I talked to someone who clearly worked kind of in the back office. He was very communicative, but he was a little novice in the way that he was speaking to clients. I don't think he spoke to clients very often. And he goes, well, I don't work on the streets. Let me call the guy who works on the streets. And it was funny. It was like he was like using he was using the layman's terminology that they probably use in the back office to describe the person who's out in the car delivering the mail. And I kind of learned something from it, but I thought it was kind of sweet because he was trying to communicate. He was definitely in the Page of Swords energy. He was trying to communicate the information to me, but he was not used to speaking to customers in a formal way. So he's coming across as a little juvenile, but the way that he expressed it was using the terminology that he uses in the back office. And sometimes, and it's funny, I work a professional day job, so sometimes when I'm communicating to clients, I keep that in mind, because sometimes when I'm using what I deem back office terminology, I'm in the aura of the Page of Swords. I'm like, okay, maybe I'm using terminology with this person that they don't need to know. It makes me look kind of nubile, saying this. And it's not in a bad way. The other way that I kind of read that too is that maybe if you're trying to stay hip, I'm an older person, and when I talk to my younger niece, she'll give me the terminology that's new, oh, well, he's my bae, or I was so jelly, and these all have timestamps, right? These all have timestamps, but it's funny. I always think of that scene from She's All 10 Things I Hate About You. Their dad's a doctor, and he thinks that he knows all the big lingo. It's great. He's like, no, you think I don't? You think I'm not down? I got the 411. You're not getting, you're not getting jiggy with some guy. I don't care how dope his ride is. That's when I'm in the Page of Swords energy, I'm like, oh my god, because it's funny. My significator, the card that represents me, is usually the Queen of Swords. But when I'm showing up, it's Page of Swords. I'm like, oh my god, I sound so dumb, and it's not dumb, but sometimes the page can manifest when you're trying to be hip, but you are older, and you're not pulling it off. Sometimes it can be you're not pulling it off, and we'll see it more when we get into the reverse. But a lot of times it can be righting a wrong. Again, both of these individuals look really brave. Sometimes it can be a young person who's really making a stand. So sometimes it can be the sign of an activist who's taking, who's maybe marching for the first time. It can be someone, and honestly, to get kind of real, it can be a child who's standing up for something that they believe in. It could be a child who's defending someone. If it's a friend, it can be again, a lot of this means social media. It means posts. So if you're standing up, maybe someone was trolling your friend online, and you do a follow-up post that's like, shut your mouth, you don't know what you're talking about. Again, this does have a strong sense, and again, a lot of readers read this as being the little social media peeper. If you do have a crush on someone, or if you're trying to see what someone's up to, it basically means that you have limited information, and the information that you're getting is from what you see online, or what you're getting through telephone. So it can be a friend of a friend of a friend, and be like, hey, have you heard about so and so? What are they up to? So you don't have full information, but you're going on what you know, which is very little, which is kind of putting you into Page of Swords energy. But a lot of times it is you trying to champion a cause. Sometimes it can be little things that you post online. Sometimes it could be things that you post online that, again, you don't have all the information about, but you're passionate about. I also see this as a lot of times when you have a new hobby that you've started, that you get really excited about mentally, it shows up as the Page of Swords energy. Now, the last card I absolutely love. This is the Slow Tarot by Lacey Bryant. And I love the fact that it's a girl. And she's kind of, she's doing that kind of touche. She's kind of swinging the sword around. I love the fact that the sky is kind of gray and she's doing that kind of playing with the sword. So again, what I get from this interpretation, which I think is beautiful, and I love the pages depicted as children. I also love the fact that there's diversity here where this is a child of a different ethnic background and it's girl. I love that. But what I love is that sometimes those little posts, I love the fact that she's kind of jabbing the sword. So a lot of times it can be a lot of times it is social media posts or it can be something that you said that was a little bit of a jab. And I kind of read this one of two ways. If you see the card next to like a cups card, especially like the 9 of cups, it could be something that you said while you were under the influence. And I don't mean this in a funny way, but that what did they say? There's a Latin expression that says in vine, in truth, which means in wine, kind of that liquid courage. If you've had a few drinks, maybe you say something. And again, when we get into the oracle cards for the reading part of this video, it's kind of like you have no filter. That's what the Page of Swords is like. Maybe you said something when you had no filter. And that doesn't necessarily mean intoxication. Sometimes if you're in a stressed out mood or you've just really been irritated to the point where you're going to say what you think, you'll slide. It's almost like you do that slide right into the Page of Swords energy where you'll kind of jab somebody. It can be a backhanded comment. And we'll see that more in the reverse. But a lot of times it's you saying what you think on the fly without really putting any precursor thought into it. So it is about being, it's about poking. Sometimes that can be in a real honest sense where you're calling out something that it really is an injustice. It can be you saying your truth without any second thought, which is not a bad thing. It's you kind of refusing to be discouraged, and it's you keeping a firm resolve, like, okay, this is what I think. The other thing is, like, it's almost like you're going into it with a young person's attitude where you're not the reason that energy lacks maturity is because you're not giving it a second thought. You're thinking it's like you having no filter. It's like you saying, I think this, and boom. This is what I think. And sometimes that thought might not be backed up by a lot of facts, but it's a good thing. Now, another time is that the Page of Swords can be you breaking out of a time of depression. It can sometimes be, I do kind of see it as being that kind of witty, because again, it being a sword, sometimes it can be that witty. Have you ever noticed that when someone's in a really kind of blue mood, if they have like more of a dry sense of humor, and you see this if you have any Capricorn in your chart, or if you have any Gemini, this is a very strongly Gemini energy because it pertains to a lot of base or root learning. You can have a real sharp sense of humor. But you do see this as sometimes if maybe you've been maybe you've had a time of feeling really blue, and then all of a sudden you say something that's really witty. I do see this as kind of the dry wit, which is really more of a Capricorn thing. It's more of that sarcastic kind of straight man humor. It can also be someone who's it can be like a joke or something that someone posts that just really, I see it as cutting through, like maybe you cut through the tension. So if you break the tension with the joke, or if you break the tension with the truth. The other thing is that if you are facing a situation where a lot of times, sometimes people will refuse to say the truth because they don't want to get into trouble. Again, if it's that real stodgy, everybody's in the room and no one wants to say what they're thinking, this can be the person who says what they really think. And that's a refreshing, and in that same sense, it's a breath of fresh air, right? You feel the wind blowing. You see the formation of the ducks break, So again, it can be that boom. Okay, well, so, and it can be blunt. Again, it can be that touche, like well, what about this? Sometimes in more formal situations, like if it is in a business context, sometimes people don't want to talk about what's wrong with a situation. Sometimes if you're going with a new computer system, or if it's like an environmental issue, a lot of people will be like, oh yeah, that's the great solution, we should go with that. But no one's saying, well, what about this? I thought this was a problem, right? It's the person who's daring to say, even though it'll come across as a little, childish, it breaks the tension. It breaks it. It's the, hey, what about this? So it does keep it really real. It keeps it really real. The other thing is that sometimes this can be, if you do see this in more of a clandestine sense, so if you do see this in a relationship sense, it can be someone who's only texting you but never calling you. So sometimes that can be Paige in a negative sense, where it's like, okay, this person only ever texts me, or they ghost and then they zombie, they ghost and then they show up again. Oh, they text me but they never call me, they never ask you out for a date. It's sometimes keeping it on that real surface level. And I'll be honest, of my generation, I feel for the younger generations, because that is really an epidemic too, with the advent of dating technology, where you can swipe left or swipe right, and you never really get in deep with someone. And someone can really, the page can be someone kind of keeping things on such a surface level that it's superficial. Right? It can be superficial. The other thing is that it can be someone who texts in a real juvenile way. Maybe they never capitalize their I's, or they never use correct punctuation. It can be someone who uses a lot of emojis, and you might read that as kind of childish if you're in a more professional context. It can be that person who just doesn't kind of get it, and that's kind of, we'll get into that more in the reverse. But a lot of times it is kind of keeping your chin up high. It can be that social media post that really brightens your day, or you can be the person who keeps people in touch, with the little posts that you make every day. One other thing that I also kind of think with this is that, especially with this card, is that a long time ago, Facebook used to have a feature where you can poke people. And my friends and I used to poke each other all the time, and then we make really funny, inappropriate jokes about it. But it is kind of like that. It's like poking someone, and in a good sense. In a good sense. I'll say, and again, if you're watching this at the time it posts, in 2020, the time this video posts, is it's kind of like poking. If someone's been real quiet, you're the person who's willing to go up and poke and be like, how are you? How's your day going? What do you think of this? I also think of it as like, maybe you're the person who sends the kind of funny meme to someone to get them to lighten up, which is really a good thing. It's how you embrace a difficult situation with a little levity, and it's incorporating a lot of kind of young at heart kind of adult things. The other thing that I embrace also with the page and the upright is that, we when you think about it, yes, there's a time for professionalism. Yes, putting an emoji at the end of your sentence is probably a little childish. But when you look at text messages, when you look at DMs, when you look at emails, they're so dry. They're so dry, and honestly, the written word is wonderful for communication, but it doesn't convey context very well. If someone's only texting you, or if someone's sending you an email, you can't tell if they're smiling, you can't tell if they're being sarcastic. And again, with the sword being double-edged, sometimes it can be a backhanded comment. But if you add a smiley face, if you add this, if I also get the sense that you're brave enough to not care if someone interprets your emoji the wrong way. You're trying to bring a smile to their day with an instant message, right? The other thing is that sometimes it can mean that you're a really good pen pal. Sometimes you send those little chats to people to brighten their day. That maybe you send cards. And it is that, just that communication, that persistence of like, and I do think of this as, and I'll be a little macabre for a minute. You only get 60 to 80 years on this rock. 100 years if you're lucky. Don't be afraid to say what you think. Don't be afraid to send someone a letter to say, I hope you're okay. I hope you're hanging in there. Um, the other thing is that those little gift emojis, or saying, the other thing is it's saying what you really think, despite the fact that you're not really thinking about censure. You're young enough, or in the mindset of a young person, because you can be an older person in this energy, where you don't care if someone thinks that you're being juvenile. You're going to go ahead and do it because you're facing problems very squarely. Now, when you look at the page in reverse, a lot of times it does mean someone who it can mean someone who's avoiding communication. It can definitely mean that someone who is juvenile and kind of it can be, now, one thing in the upright is it can be kind of an unexpected response. Like maybe you weren't expecting to hear from someone. And when you look at the page in reverse, sometimes it can mean a response that was negative that you didn't expect. Sometimes it can be no response. So if you see the page in reverse in a romance spread, maybe you're in separation from someone and you sent an email or a text to this person and then you get no response at all, or you get a negative response. That can be the page in reverse. Sometimes it can be a disturbing letter. It can be little nuances in a contract that you overlooked because you really, glossed over it. A lot of times the Page of Swords can be someone who's not really well versed with what to look for. So like if you're buying a house, or if you're agreeing to some kind of contract, if you're a writer and you're signing a book contract, you really want to look over the fine print. The Page in the Swords in reverse is that you might have kind of gotten hit with something because you were not knowledgeable of what to look for. Sometimes it can be wastefulness. A lot of times the page in reverse can just be that expression of kind of blunt. It can be that post that embarrasses you. Maybe you posted it. If you see the page in reverse next to the Nine of Cups, maybe you posted something when you were drunk or high, or you posted something that was really, again, had no filter and offended people. That also made you look like you were just juvenile. The other thing is if you're an older person, and you're posting kind of ignorant things or things that people would not agree with, that can be the page in reverse. A lot of times it can be over obsession with details, like you feel like you're not looking close enough, but then you're agonizing or over analyzing. Sometimes it can be a child who's being very verbally, that can be talking back, or being they can be real argumentative, right? The other thing is it can be a child who's posting a lot of slanderous things about you on social media. Sometimes it could be learning disabilities, like if someone has dyslexia or if someone has autism. It can be a poor choice in an educational thing. Like maybe you feel like you're being a poor teacher to your child, or you feel like your child's not learning well enough. And that's a big concept, especially now in 2020, when a lot of us have to be at-home teachers. Maybe you feel like you're not able to teach the subject matter. Sometimes it can be a sign that maybe you chose the wrong school. It can be a sign of a child who's not getting along with their peers, or having trouble, or fighting with people. It can be a clash of religious beliefs. A lot of times it can be the sign of someone who has a lack of education. Maybe someone's falling behind, or you meet a child who is supposed to be of a certain reading level but cannot read at all. Sometimes it can be the sign of someone who's illiterate. Sometimes it can be not seeing the forest from the trees, right? A lot of times the page in reverse can be a backhanded comment, someone who said something very deliberately to take a stab at you, you know? The other thing, but most of the time it can be something that you said that comes back to haunt you. And especially in this day and age, it can be that tweet someone screenshot and came back and said, well, you said that you're not about this, but you, back in the day, you said you were. So it can be that tweet that comes back to really kind of bite you in the ass and make you look like you're ignorant. A lot of times, it can be overlooking the fine print. Um, some kind of Sometimes it can be, repeating past mistakes. Again, it's definitely about learning kind of base things. Sometimes it can be a sign that you might need to go back and get a degree that's elementary. Um, you know, Sometimes if it's pertaining to a child, it can be news of staying back a grade. It can be an upsetting letter or phone call. It could be something that a family member said to you that was very cutting or just kind of came out of the blue. So if you do see this next to a health reading, sometimes it can be sometimes it could be that text message where your doctor says, please call us. And you're like, oh God, what's this about? Sometimes it can be a minor health problem. The other way I kind of read it is that sometimes it can be just a little bit of memory loss. Sometimes maybe I do see this as the in the reverse as being if you misplace something and you just can't remember where it is. So a lot of times I see this card in the reverse come up during Mercury retrogrades when you're feeling a little foggy. Sometimes it can be you forgetting certain things, like you just, again, you're forgetting how to spell things, you're forgetting where you put things, and it's just, you're feeling like you're not really up to snuff, like you're just not able to handle it. Now, but a lot of times when it pertains to people, it's definitely kind of a, you know, it can be someone who's lying, especially a child. It can be it can be someone who, sometimes if it's in a political sense or in a social media sense, it can be someone that you see as being just a real lying person. Like, read my list, read my lips, no new taxes. It could be a sign of someone that is just flat out, deceitful. It can be two-faced gossip. It can be someone who's out to tear you down in order to make themselves look better. It can be a shady character, or a ruthless, or if you see this in reverse next to like the Seven of Swords, it's definitely someone who's probably talking a little bit of trash to you about you. And who's doing something who's very, because the other thing is someone who's very cunning, right? The other thing is that it can be the onset of that kind of behavior. So if this is a younger person who's starting to lie, who's starting to steal, or especially someone who's starting to be verbally manipulative. A lot of times this can be in the reverse, the danger sign that maybe you want to seek out some psychology for this child or this person. Either that, or you want to avoid this person because they're out to get what they want, and they're not afraid to say or use their words to a negative end in order to make that happen. But whether it's in the upright or in the reverse, I do think the Page of Swords, it's a very lively energy. It's very lithe. It's very bouncy kind of energy. It's very versatile. It's very flexible. The other thing that I get with it is that it is someone who is able to roll with the punches, and someone who's able to communicate, able to follow up and catch up. One other thing is that it can be someone who's able to keep up with the times, keep up with the technology, or it's someone who's learning new technology and is adapting. So, maybe you're learning how to text for the first time, maybe you're learning how to, Instagram for the first time. So, a lot of times it's teaching that or learning that for the first time. So it's a very positive card, and when I see when it come up in a read, it usually just kind of means very lively energy. It means very Gemini, and kind of, it's like a breath of fresh air, and I do like to see it in a read. But that concludes the how-to part. We're going to go ahead and go into the reading. So we have 3 decks here. The first deck is the Rider-Waite-Smith with the Sunstone. The second deck is the Witch's Tarot with the Citrine. The third deck is the Slow Tarot with the Bloodstone. And we're going to be clarifying by the messages from the Divine Masculine. And what this deck is, this is a deck that I got a long time ago, but what it is it's more of a, as I drop it on the floor, it's more I do use it in my romance reads a lot, but what I love about this deck is that it's like thoughts in your head, and it can be thoughts in the other person's head or it can be in your head, but it's unfiltered. You know, it's almost like, you know, what I'm really thinking, what I'm really feeling. So I wanted to use it as a clarifier because I really felt like that pertained to the Page of Swords energy. I got the hiccups. So sorry, guys. But I thought that pertained to the Page of Swords energy because he says what he really thinks. Excuse me. But I've got the hiccups back, guys. All right. So if you need more time, please pause the video. Excuse me. And I'll see you in a minute. Okay, we're back. Now the layout's going to look a little bit different because I filmed the first half of this video and then my I got the hiccups. I took a break and then I came back and started filming and I forgot to double check that my microphone was on. So that's how the Page of Swords manifests for me. No, I'm kidding. So we're going to go ahead and pick back up. It looks a little different because it's filmed at 2 different times, but we're going to go ahead and get started again. We're going to make up for lost time. So deck number 1, the Rider-Waite-Smith with the Sunstone. How does the Page of Swords manifest in your life? Let's go ahead and find out. Okay, and energy. Your future energy. Alright. Getting the Hermit too. Oh my gosh, guys. Now, I'm going with, this deck is technically meant for like relationship reads, but what I like about the messages is that it's kind of like, it's like direct thoughts that it's almost like what you're thinking, and this could be for yourself or for another person. And what I like about this deck is it's like, it's direct thought with almost as if you have no filter. And that's very much kind of a Page of Swords kind of energy. I will be reviewing this deck when I do the Oracle deck review for relationship, love and relationship. So stay tuned for that. That's going to be a few weeks off, but it's coming soon. But let's go ahead and see. Okay, so in your spread, it's okay, don't worry. Oh my gosh, that's really nice, guys. I feel you. I want to do things right. All right. This is really quite sweet, even though we have the 5 of Swords in play. And we've got a lot of swords here. We got a lot of swords here, guys. What I'm kind of seeing is I'm definitely seeing that, if I have to call it, I'm definitely seeing that this is communication with someone. And what it is just like we said in the intro, you know, when someone keeps communication on a real surface level, like they're not calling you, they're not asking to meet up, but then they're texting you or they're sending you emails. That's the kind of energy that I'm getting from this. I kind of see this one of two ways. If you are in the Page of Swords energy, you're looking at someone, like, it's almost like one way that I kind of read this is it's almost like if this is your energy, you're learning how to communicate better. Maybe in the past you know that was a little bit of a problem for you, because in the past energy you got the Hanged Man. And you see how the Hanged Man is suspended, right? Like he's looking at something and he looks enlightened, right? He's seeing something from a new perspective. The other thing is he's kind of he's seeing things from a higher perspective, like it's it's divine discontent, so to speak. And I think in the past what had happened was maybe maybe you really kept your distance from others. Maybe you've had trouble with communication in the past. And because what I see is, I see in your present energy, because in the past I see you learning something. Like, I see, the hanged man is an uncomfortable position, but he's learning something from that experience. So maybe in the past you did have, maybe you had some falling out with people because of the way that you communicated, or maybe you didn't communicate real well. And so what you're doing is in your present energy, and you kind of see this anytime I see cards come out like in a string like this, I think of the root, the stem, and the bloom. So the bloom is the Page of Swords, and the stem is the Eight of Pentacles, but the root of it is the Five of Swords. Maybe what I kind of get from this is maybe you were afraid that people would talk about you. Maybe you felt like if you gave too much away, if you spoke too openly, that someone might kind of use it against you. So that really kind of it kind of fed into your not wanting to engage, right? You'd rather sit back and wait, right? The other thing that I kind of get is that you might I kind of get this as a little bit of a testing pile. Like, maybe you kind of like to sit back and wait to make sure that someone is going to. I get a sense that trust is really important to you in this pile. Either because you have been betrayed in the past, or something about your communication style isn't very open. Either that, or you're dealing with somebody in this energy. But I do sense that currently you're working on it, right? Like a page is a novice. He's learning how to communicate. He's learning how to be more open. And I see in the past that the other thing that I kind of get is that maybe you've had real strong opinions. Maybe it was a little bit of your way or the highway. And in the recent past, you've learned, you've realized that behavior, maybe you've learned that behavior isn't the best way to go, right? Being dogmatic in your beliefs, the other thing that I kind of get from the Five of Swords is it's one of those attitudes of, well, this is what I think about the matter, and I'm going to surround myself with people who think the same way I do. If you don't think the same way I do, then you're dismissed, right? It's a little bit of an arrogant energy. So it's possible that maybe in the past you kind of reflected on that and said, okay, me acting that way is really not, it's not earning me true friends. And, maybe you want to learn to be more open-minded. The other thing I get is that it's possible that you're dealing with somebody in that behavior. Like, it's quite possible that in the past, you you had you had a real distanced communication from someone. The other way that I kind of read this is that maybe you are looking at somebody in a new light. Like you're looking at a relationship that you had with somebody, and you're seeing it, in a new light. The other thing I kind of get is that maybe you had a lot of conflict in your relationships, and it doesn't just have to be romantic. It could be with friends, it can be with family, where you always it was always a battle, and there were always winners and losers, right? And so what you're learning, or what you're seeing, is you're seeing that, okay, there's a higher purpose to this, right? If you take a dogmatic opinion about something and say, well, I believe in this, and if you're going to hang out with me, you got to believe in this too, you're going to alienate yourself, right? Either that, or if you do encounter someone who tries to tell you what to believe, or you also, what it can be is that you see that there are people who tried to stand up to this guy, right? There's people who tried to stand up to this guy and failed. What I'm kind of getting is that maybe you're looking back on past behavior and thinking, I really need to work on this, right? The Eight of Pentacles is honing something, it's working on something. And the Page of Swords is learning how to communicate effectively, learning how to communicate well. He's new at it. And you can be any age. You could be elderly, you could be in your 80s and 90s and still learn how to communicate effectively for the first time. There's never a wrong first time to start. You can learn how to do anything at any age. But what I am kind of getting is that I'm also getting that something in your past, because this is the only major arcana that's in the spread and it's in your past, something major happened that kind of enlightened you, right? The other thing is that you're looking at that experience from a new perspective. You're looking at it upside down, right? He's on his head, and you would think that's the worst position that you can be in, but he doesn't look uncomfortable. He looks like, like I always say, it's the clouds parting and the sun coming down, like, it's the wake, you're finally seeing it correctly. So what I'm kind of getting is that you've had an awakening. You've had kind of a spiritual awakening. The other thing I kind of get from this is that whether this is your energy or someone that you're dealing with, because it can be someone that you're dealing with in the Page of Swords energy, it's possible that this person in the past this is a card of inaction. And the reason that's a card of inaction, and we had the Hermit try to pop out, and in our future we have the Four of Swords. All of those cards are talking about pulling back in order to evaluate a situation correctly, right? So if this is your energy, you had a little bit of an enlightenment. Maybe you were fighting with everybody because of the way that you were talking to them. Maybe you had an opinion about something that was not popular, and no one's telling you what to believe, but it's almost like your attitude or the way that you treat people. If you get pushback from other good people, and then you're attracting, not so good people, then it's something in your life that you have to look at squarely. Like, it's almost like you have to realize what's going on there in with that, right? And we've all had it, right? We've all had it where, myself included, I'm very much a perfectionist, and there's a lot of times that I would kind of get nitpicky and say, oh, well, things have to be this way. Well, things don't have to be that way, and that's not what life's about. It doesn't have to be perfect. And the more that I tried to make everything perfect in my life, it denied me a lot of pleasures in life. And when you finally realize oh my God, I'm doing this, and why am I doing this? That's kind of like a hanged man experience. It's like seeing something that you've done forever and being like, oh my God, I've been doing that. How can I be different? How can I handle this, right? But what I'm really seeing, because especially with the Five of Swords and the Page of Swords, is this is a lot of opinions. It's a lot of opinions. The other thing that I kind of get with this is that you've had a lot of people come up against you and fail because you were that strong. The other thing is that this could be someone that you're dealing with. This could be, and what it is that in the past you're realizing, okay, this person was, really bossy. This person was telling me what to believe, and what you're kind of doing is you've had an awakening, and you took some time. You went into a stage of inaction in order to see. It's almost like you're starting to understand the situation. You're starting to understand the higher purpose of all of these, all of this conflict. The other thing is that if you have been bullied, or if you've had people in your life that try to tell you what to do, you're working hard on gaining your own voice. Because that's another thing I see here. The Hanged Man and all these cards being a lot of inaction, you might be a little bit more of a passive person. And it's not a bad thing. It just means that you're gentle. You're not if somebody comes up that's all tough and like you need to believe this, it's going to be hard to beat that. It's going to be hard to go up against that. And it's almost like you're practicing and you're trying to get better with your words. If this is a relationship, this, you're either dealing with, like, if this is a relationship and this is like an ex, the ex in the past really realized how they caused a lot of the conflict in your relationship, and they have, you probably, the other thing is you've probably not heard from this person in a while because they've been pulling into themselves because they're having a new realization of what's been going on this whole time, right? And they needed a little bit of time because it was opening their eyes, right? It was opening their eyes. But what you might be seeing now is that you might be getting, if this is a relationship situation, and it can be family member too, or friends, this person might be coming back around very gently. Like they might be sending you a text here, an email here, and what you're seeing is you are seeing a different person than this conflict card. They're not out to defeat you. It's almost like they're actually trying to work on the communication. Either that, or if this is their energy or your energy, they realize how in the past they were really kind of, throwing their verbal weight around. The other thing with the Five of Swords is it's very blatant manipulation. The Seven of Swords is very clandestine. It's like, okay, I don't want to get caught. I don't want anybody to see what I'm doing. I'm going to sneak around. The Five of Swords is flat out, well, I win, you lose, ha. So it's quite possible that, you might be dealing with someone who's realizing, oh my God, I've been a Nelson. If you've ever watched The Simpsons, I've been a Nelson this whole time. I need to get my stuff together. And what they're doing is they're coming back around with very, surface level kind of communication. But what you're seeing is you're not seeing more of the bullying. You're seeing that they're kind of working on it. Like they're working on it. They're trying to be better. Now, one thing I will say is that with both of these cards, they're not, they haven't perfected it yet. One other thing that I see with this is that sometimes if you were when someone's very adept with their words, and I'll come out and I'll say it, I'll use the word manipulative, because if you look up the word manipulative in the dictionary, it means to handle with dexterity. To handle with dexterity. And people who know how to handle people with their words or with dexterity tend to be pretty slick. And it's one of those things where if you do have somebody who was a bully or someone who was really, a little bit of the I've got to win at all costs, if they are legitimately working on it, they are going to be in a Page of Swords energy, because you don't get out of that energy, you don't get out of that persona very easily, because when you think about it, it's almost it's kind of addictive, oh, okay, well, I can win, if I just say this or do this, I know I can crush this person. So for someone to actually be working on that, I'm really surprised the Devil didn't come out, but we got the Hermit, which is pretty spiritual. If you're dealing with a person in this energy, I think they're really trying to be different. I think they're trying to be better. It's just, old dogs, new tricks, all old habits die hard. And that's what I'm kind of seeing. But what I'm seeing is that I do see someone who's legitimately putting the work in. And it's almost like they're focusing on that work too. And again, if this is your energy, maybe you've really had a lot of conflict with people. The other thing is, I keep hearing the expression, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Maybe you did go round and round and round, and maybe you did have people try to stand up to you and then they got crushed by you. Or maybe the same defeatist behavior that you, the other thing that I get is that I don't think anybody's bad when they get into this behavior. It's crappy ass behavior. I'm not going to defend it. But I think a lot of times what it is sabotage of others usually is sabotage of the self as well. And I'm sorry, just to put the psychologist hat on. I'm sorry. I just came out of the other day, I filmed the psychology and self-help deck review, and now all of a sudden my brain is just totally in Freud mode. But it is kind of true, the things that the behavior that you subject other people to is usually the behavior, the way that you treat yourself in the head. And it doesn't make it healthy, doesn't make it right. But what I'm kind of seeing here is that maybe someone defeating you or pushing you away or making you feel less than is also them it's in order to feel big, someone has to make someone feel small. And that's really hard to get over, especially when it's a really ingrained psychological behavior. But I do see that this person is throwing this the nice thing about the Eight of Pentacles is you see how engrossed this person is. They are very, very dedicated to making positive change. And what's beautiful about the spread is that they're willing to look like a student with this. Like, I think if this is somebody else, I think they are working hard to make their communication better, for them to not fall back into those really nasty kind of power plays. And they're doing their best. It's almost like they're using that power play energy like a laser beam. They're channeling it into. The other thing I kind of see is that they're trying to channel it into something physical. This could quite potentially be someone who's throwing themselves into work, and then, but they're also. I see someone seeing something in a new light, and then and them working really hard to make change, but they're still learning, right? This is still very new. This is still very new. The other thing I get is that it's you're seeing this change through little text messages. Maybe, before, if you went to talk to this person, they would just crush you, and now they're actually, you can see that they're very diligently trying to answer your question politely. They're taking time to send you a text message. But you do see that they're working at it, right? This is going to take some time to get away from this energy. And if this is your energy, you're working hard. You're working hard. The other thing that I'm kind of getting is that if you feel like you're going to come close to falling back into that other energy, you'll keep it surface level to make sure that doesn't happen. I do also see somebody really throwing themselves into work, though. Um, quite potentially, this could be someone at work. If this is a coworker, um, maybe you had some kind of falling out, or maybe you had a coworker that was just really kind of, real dominant, a little alpha, and you see that I think that they're mellowing out a little bit. Now, the future is really beautiful. You got the Four of Swords. So you got three cards about swords in this, and you got the Hermit and you got the Hanged Man. But we had a tarot on the Four of Swords. It's definitely, if you get a chance, check out that video because I think it really covers a lot. But the other thing that I kind of get is that it's going from a 5 to a 4, and then the page is carrying a sword. So it's almost like the 5 minus 1. Um, Again, you know what I'm getting? You know what I'm getting is that maybe in the past it was real easy for you to collect all these swords, and instead of conquering people, you've turned over a new leaf, or the person you're dealing with, the person who represents the page, is turning over a new leaf, and they've pulled the one sword. They from all their conquests, they took one sword, and the other four are you're meditating on the past. You're meditating on the past. It's almost like I am getting a strong sense of, how in certain recovery programs there's a stage where you make amends. And what I'm kind of getting here is that as you move forward, because this is a very meditative card, this is a very the Hermit, the Hanged Man is very anti-conflict. It's about pulling into oneself and reflecting on what's already occurred. I do get a strong sense that moving forward, if this is your energy, now first off, if this is your energy where you're trying to cultivate your own voice, maybe you've been bullied, or maybe you've had other people really take advantage of the fact that you're not You know, the other thing I kind of get is that maybe you feel like you're not quick enough. Like, somebody who's more verbally astute than you are is real quick to tear you down. And before you can even get a word in edgewise, they've won. And you're working on it. It's almost like you're learning how to be more communicative. But a big thing that I get here too is that maybe in the past you I'm getting a sense that if you were real quiet, if you were real reserved, you're realizing how that's affected your relationships. I think you're also realizing how not speaking, because the other thing is you see him holding all the swords and they're not communicating. Oh my god. Okay, mind blown. New one more definition here, guys. Sorry. What if by you not speaking, by you being quiet, you've manipulated situations? That's crazy, guys. I'm almost getting that. Because that is a form of manipulation, right? The silent treatment. That's a way that you can defeat someone real easily. And I'm almost getting the sense that you're realizing that that doesn't serve you. But the other thing that I'm kind of getting is that maybe you learned that somewhere. You learn that somewhere, because that's very psychological, guys. That's very psychological, because it's powerful. You stop talking to someone, and then what it does is it elicits a response for someone, because they're like, you're not talking to me, why aren't you talking to me, what's wrong? And then all of a sudden that the other people are doing exactly what you want them to do, because you're not all. And how easy is that? I'm just going to stop talking to you and you do what I want you to do. But it's almost like I think you're learning that how much damage that does, and you're working. I do get a strong sense that the other thing is that pentacles are what you value, or what you value. And when you value relationships, when you value people, because the other thing is that I was thinking about this the other day. When it comes to relationships, especially marriages, but it can work. It applies to family and friend dynamics as well. The biggest cornerstone of a healthy relationship, family, spouse, friends, is mutual respect. Mutual respect. When you treat someone with respect and they treat you with respect, maybe you said something kind of silly. Maybe they don't understand where you're coming from. Maybe your sense of fashion is not the same as theirs. It doesn't matter. Whatever's going on, if you treat the other person with respect, you're going to have a quality, substantial, solid relationship with that person. And when somebody stops, when someone controls the situation by either not speaking or insisting that their opinion be the one that's followed, that's an imbalance, and that's a lack of respect. So I am almost getting a sense, I'm getting more of a sense of this person that you're dealing with, or if this is your energy, you're learning how to be more communicative. And as you go in the future, it's almost like you're going to take a break. I think I do get a sense that this period of rest is to think about what's happened in the past. The other thing is, if you're gaining your voice, the other thing that I kind of get is that if you've been put in situations where someone's tried to control you or manipulate you, instead of you engaging, instead of you playing into it, you're gonna take the four swords, you're gonna walk away, and you're gonna meditate on it. The other thing that I kind of get is that if this is your energy, you're gonna think, you're gonna focus, you're gonna take time to be quiet, and you're gonna use that quiet as a way to kind of heal from the past. You're going to think, I really get a sense that you're going to think long and hard about what was going on there, why that happened, why you behaved the way you did, why did you allow someone else to treat you the way that you were treated. And I do get the sense, I get this strong sense that you're growing. I just get a sense that you're growing. I think the other thing is that I think that you're working really hard. But I do get the sense that you're trying to be more communicative. Now, if this is someone that you're dealing with, I really like this card because it says, it's okay, don't worry. It's okay, don't worry. So, if this is your energy, if you're learning to speak up for yourself, it's the universe is saying, it's okay, don't worry, you're doing a good job. You don't have to be a pro at this overnight. You don't have to be the King of Swords overnight. Just go through the steps, because it's a progression, right? Now, if this is someone being quiet with you, this person is going through a strong psychological change, because we kicked it off with the Hanged Man. That's a major arcana. That's a strong card. And this person is what they're doing is, I get a strong sense that this person's meditating, because the Hermit wanted to come out, the Hangman wanted to come out. I do get a sense that if this is a separate person, they're throwing themselves into work big time. And then when they're not working, they're really thinking carefully about their behaviors. But what's happening is, the one overall theme is aloofness. Like, they might be sending you a chat here, a text here, and you might be kind of worried. You might be like, okay, they've been awfully quiet. But what it is that they don't want to pull any power plays on you. They want to treat you with mutual respect, but they also have to think about their past behavior and the way that they communicate in relationships. But they're saying, okay, it's okay, don't worry. If you haven't heard from me from a little while, don't stress. It's not that I'm ignoring you. I'm not trying to do any more of that power play crap. I'm learning how to communicate in a healthy way, and that's going to take some time, and it's going to take some meditation. But the strong sense that I get is that they are looking at their relationships in a whole new way. The other thing that I'm kind of getting is that if this is a separate person and you've stood up to them in the past, maybe you've called them on their crap, they're really thinking about it. They're really thinking about it, and they're trying to be better. They're trying to be better. It's just, it's a slow progression, right? It's a slow change. But they are saying, it's okay, don't worry. But wow, guys, oh my gosh, that's pretty strong. A lot of times, that's pretty heavy for a Page of Swords, because a lot of times, you would think that's very lighthearted. But what that's really saying is that if you're just getting kind of surface communication, it's because someone's got a lot going on, and there's a lot of heavy kind of, metamorphosis going on under the surface. All right, so deck number 2, we got the Page of Swords. I really do love this page. This, there was, I always say there's like a competition between my cards when I pull the decks for the How to Tarot, but this card always came to mind, so I knew I had to use it. All right, so deck number 2, how does the Page of Swords manifest in your life? Oh, wow, we got the 4 coming out a lot. Okay, current energy. Hey, future energy. Ooh. Okay, we got 2 5s. The World. 9 of Wands. Ooh, yeah, guys. Ooh. Gosh. We got somebody concluding a cycle. Okay, so let's go ahead and get some clarifiers. Ooh, okay, we got 2. We're going to go with both. Someone is triggering me. Oh, no kidding. And I just want to be happy. Oh, gosh, guys. All right. You're going to make my heart hurt with this. Okay. Please don't do that. Five of Cups. Oh, wow. Okay. This is pretty wild because we had the World trying to pop out too. Yeah. Wow, guys. And so far in both reads, I'm really getting a sense of you. I'm getting a strong sense of you having kind of like I feel like everybody, well, so far, I haven't gone to the 3rd deck yet, but, so far I'm getting a strong sense that a lot of people have things going on. What I'm kind of getting is that, it's funny, when you look at the Page of Swords, you think of someone who's real glib, someone who's, I also, one thing we didn't go over in the how-to part is that the page can be someone who's very verbally quick, someone who's kind of witty, the other thing is it's someone who's real trendy, someone who knows all the hip verbiage and, knows how to express themselves. But they do it and again, they do it in a novice way. But so far, with the 1st and the 2nd decks, what the strong vibe that I'm getting, it's almost like you're getting what I'm hearing is, how when a woman has a lot of emotional, churning stuff going on, and you walk up to her and you're like, how you feeling? You're like, fine. It's not funny, but what I'm seeing is that what's probably happening is you're probably getting, again, you're getting those kind of text messages like, I'm fine. This is fine. It's all fine. And there's so much crap going on under the surface. The reason that you're kind of getting, and I even said it, sometimes the Page of Swords can be the half-ass text message. And you know what I always think of it too is that sometimes the Page of Swords is sometimes when you are crazy busy at work. If you're a mom, if you're a dad, you're getting text messages from your mother, from your spouse, from your children. Can you do this? Can you pick up a bottle of milk on the way home? And then finally someone text message you. Maybe it's almost like that friend who says, hey, how you doing? And it's like you're so communicated out that you don't want to ignore your friend. You don't want it to go that 24 hours past the time of, okay, they're going to think that I don't want to talk to them. I do want to talk to them, but I just don't have any mental sanity left to actually, craft a decent text message to say, yeah, I'm good, I'm fine. I'm kind of getting these vibes from both of these piles here, because in the past, anytime I see 3 cards, I think of the root, the stem, and the bloom. And the root is a major arcana. You got the wheel of fortune, which is a good turn of fate. It's like it's a closing. It's the turning of your world is progressing. Events in your life are progressing, but what you have is that you have events in your life that are culminating. Sorry, I can't speak. In the 5 of Wands and the 4 of Swords. So what you got is you've got some competition in your life. You've got a little bit of conflict. And what it's doing is the competition, and this could be at work. It could be at home. Again, I love this. I really do love this 5 of Wands. I wish they made this deck in a bigger size because it's a cool card. But you see, I always say it's kind of like the Triwizard Tournament in Harry Potter. You see 5 dragons and 5 riders all fighting, and you never know who's going to win, right? So a lot of times it means equal competition. But I am almost getting a little bit of a family sense. I am kind of getting a sense like you're just trying to keep everything in check, but you need a break. You need a break, right? The other thing that I'm getting is that the Wheel of Fortune is usually very fortunate. It's a sign of good luck, but maybe something changed in your life recently. Maybe you got engaged to be married. Maybe you bought a new house. Maybe you're trying to move. I know if you're watching this at the time the video posts, 2020 has been a crazy year. And what it is that you do have a turn of fate that's fortunate, but it's just stirring up a lot of change. It's funny. I have a friend on Facebook, and she completely renovated her house, sold her house, moved to a new place. And then they also got like 2 new animals in the mix. And believe it or not, that's a lot of change. And, when you think about it, on top of quarantining and staying at home and working from home, not having any separation between, work, home, and your third space, it can get really grueling, right? It can cause a lot of conflict, and it doesn't even have to be a sign of incompatibility. When you work next to your spouse and then see them every minute of the day, there's a healthy kind of separation that you need between the areas of your life, and your areas of life have been lumped together, and it gets a little stressful. It gets very stressful. But I think that you have positive changes going on in your life, but it's almost like those positive changes are bringing about a lot of stress. Also, anytime I see the 5 of Wands, I always think of those being the little petty annoyances. If this is a work thing, it could be that you might have somebody who's jealous of you at work, who's trying to make your life harder. You know what I mean? Like they might throw obstacles at your path, and you're just kind of like, oh, okay, that's cute. One more thing for me to do. Thanks. But Either that, or it could legitimately be honest competition. You know, maybe there's a project that you want to do, but someone else is pitching for it too. But what it's doing is that it's positive change. It's positive change. You're progressing. The other thing is that you're moving forward with your life, which feels really good. It's just all of that is bringing about a lot of challenge. It brings a lot of conflict. You know, if this is a family situation, if you're moving or if you're doing something like that, you know, keeping everybody on the same page. The other thing that I kind of get with this too is that one thing that I see with all of the dragon riders is that when I see dragons, and actually when I did my psychology and self-help, if you look at the Echo of the Oracles deck, there's a card that says awaken inner force, and it shows a dragon. And what I kind of see is that it's very, you know, especially in today's times, if you have children who are expressing themselves, you have children who are stressed out because they have to work remote, you know, they have to go to school remotely, then you have to work remotely, then you got animals crying for you because they see you're at home all day. You know, either that, or maybe you are single and you have a new position, but then, you know, it's almost like you're getting hit from all sides. It's the Four of Swords is really a call to rest. You see this woman, I almost look at this lady as being kind of like that unconscious. Have you ever seen those movies when, you know, when you're so defensive that you're twitching, like you're literally looking over your shoulder, like, what's coming at me? You know, she's grabbing a sword, like, okay, what's next? Come at me. You know, it's almost that unhealthy kind of burnout. And I think what you're sensing is that you're sensing that's not healthy. You need a break. And what you're doing is, you know, even though this is positive change, it's been a lot of chaos, and you need a timeout. You need a timeout. So now what's beautiful is your present energy is really quite nice. You've got the Knight of Pentacles, and you've got the Page of Swords. And the Knight of Pentacles, this is a really gorgeous card. Now, this is definitely a deck I wish I would buy. You know, I don't like having a whole lot of duplicate decks, but if they made this deck in a bigger size, just because the small cards are pretty, but there's so much detail in them that you got to squint to see it. And it's like that with the Knight of Pentacles, because in the background you see a stag, and you see like a serene lake, and you see the horse is not galloping. You know, he's got his pentacle, he's on a mission. So I think what I really get from this is that I really get a sense that you're simplifying your life. You're trying to pare down your life. I do think that this might be, I get a sense this might be work related. If this is family related, it's quite possible that maybe you have some finances. You know, there's some things that you kind of, you know, some financial things that you have to sort out, and but the cool thing is you're working on it. The Knight of Pentacles always gets where he's going. He's a younger energy, but he's not a page. And you know what I'm almost getting? I'm getting a real steadiness. I'm getting a sense like, you know, like in the beginning when I said, okay, you know, when you're getting bombarded with with text messages, and you're just overwhelmed where you just can't respond to anyone even though you want to. Because I've definitely felt that way. You know, I've had those days where I'm just communicated out. I am communicated the heck out. It's like if you know, and it's funny, I've even had it where like 3 days later, my mom very gently kind of reaches out going, honey, you really seem like you're busy. I just want to check up on you. Are you okay? You know, just yes or no answer. Are you all right? I think it's almost to that point. The other thing is that it's quite possible that you might work in a field where you have, you know, fires to stomp all the time. And I think what you're doing is, I'm getting a strong quantity versus quality, or quality versus quantity vibe here. You're striving to to simplify your life where you are not feeling this chaos. Because even though this chaos is good and it's like it's momentum, it's not healthy for you, because this is, Four of Swords, being in that eye twitch kind of energy is not healthy. So it's almost like you're saying, okay, I'm gonna break this down to manageable pieces, and I'm gonna go slow. I'm going to go slow. The other thing that I always get with the the Knight of Pentacles energy that I always think is really beautiful is that sometimes when you're having that day, when you're really overstimulated, when you've got too many open tabs in your brain, you got to stop, full stop, pull hard on those air brakes and say, okay, I'm going to, because it's statistically proven there's no such thing as multitasking. There's no such thing as multitasking. There is such a thing as half-assing three things at once, though. So, no offense, but that's what you're doing when you're spreading yourself this thin. So what you've decided to do is you said, okay, no more of this chaos. I'm burnt out. Even though it's propelling me ahead fast, I don't need to be propelled forward fast. I want to go slow, and I want to, if one person texts me, I want to actually have the energy to reply to them. If another person texts me and I don't have the energy, I'm not going to reply. Then I'm going to move on to the next task, and I'm going to focus on that one task, and I'm going to complete it, and then I'm going to move on to the next one if I have the time and the energy. And that's really gorgeous energy. The other thing that I get is that if this is a person in your life, you might be getting more sporadic, like it's not like full on essays, but you might get one text message. But what I'm seeing here is that you might be dealing with someone who has a lot on their plate. So you might text message them one day and then get a response 3 days later, but that response 3 days later has correct spelling. It's very articulate. It accurately addresses what you asked them about, and it's very solid. It's a solid response. And waiting 3 days, because the Knight of Pentacles is the slowest moving knight in the deck, waiting 3 days to have a quality response, because that's the other thing, is that the Knight is quality. He's not quantity. It's whomever this is, or if this is your energy, you're caring more about quality than quantity. And what you're doing is that it might take a few days. It might be a few days later. But it's not a same day half-assed response. It might be a 3 days later, but I took care of this. The other thing is that if this is in a work context, like if this is emails, or I'm thinking this is emails. It's like correspondence about things. I think you've had enough of getting hit from all sides like dodgeball. You're like, okay, I can't operate this way. I'm going to go one at a time. You're going to get the response when you get it. If it's 3 days later, so be it. But when you get that response, the stuff is going to be done. I'm going to ABCD, make sure it's all done. And that's what I'm kind of getting from this. The other thing is that the imagery too is that, I always look at that chain around his neck, and I always kind of see it as the emblem of, I do kind of see it as, how sometimes you look at young music artists who are all about their gold chains, or all about their sports teams, or all about what they believe in. They might have a big gold cross. They might have it's almost like you're making a brand. You're making a brand, and we talked about this. You're making a brand of your communication of quality. You're saying, okay, it might take a little bit longer, but when you get that response from me, it's going to be done. It's going to be, correct. It's going to address everything that you asked me about, and it'll be done well. So, and that's so interesting, guys, because I'm not even getting like a typical page energy. I am getting more of like an email energy from this. Now, in the future, this is a little bit interesting, guys. Now, I can kind of read this in a love context, and I don't know if it's because of the message cards, but if this is a little bit of a love context, this is definitely, this could be, if you're a woman watching this can be someone who is not communicating. This is someone who's not communicating with you often, but when they do communicate with you, it's quality. And the reason being is because they have a lot of fires going on in either their work life or their home life. But when they talk to you, they really want to present a good face. The other thing is that I think that they're kind of working on their money right now. Because again, this is a knight, not a king. But what you see is, anytime I see a stag, I think of the King of Pentacles. Because stags are leaders, right? And I am getting someone who, and you do, if you look at the cloak on his horse, it's also a stag. It's almost like he's serving a king. But yeah, guys, I'm getting a strong sense that the other thing is that you might be getting some kind of sporadic communication from someone. But this person, if this is the person in your life, again, this could represent the person who's sending you the text messages or sending you the correspondence. They're very overwhelmed. They're on the brink of burnout. They have a lot coming at them. They're trying to be slow and steady. The other thing I kind of get is that the perception, the way that they want you to see them is steady and reliable. But they've got a lot of forest fires going on. Not gonna lie. Not gonna lie. And if this is your energy, it's almost like you're trying to take a break. You're trying to simplify your life. The other thing is that I do get the strong sense that you are kind of fire stomping. If this is your energy, you're trying to keep things simple and you're trying to make quality answers, but you got it coming at all sides. You really do. But I do get that strong sense that you're trying to be strong, and you're communicating to the best of your ability. But the other thing is that it is coming across as like a page, because pages are those little pings of communication. It's almost like, the other thing that I'm kind of getting is, if you've ever played the game Tetris, you have to move the game gets progressively faster. And you got to keep knocking out tiles in order for you to have more room. It's almost like I get a strong sense that you're trying to stay on top of things. But the other thing that I'm getting is that the progress has been a little bit slow, but it's been quality. Now, in the future, one other way I can kind of read this is that it's quite possible that someone has been going really slow with you. Like, you feel, the other thing I kind of get is that you feel like you've been texting forever. Like the person never picks up the phone to call you, never never asks you out on a date, or wants to see you in person, and that's really frustrating. Maybe in the past you really felt like you kind of had a future with this person, but then, you know, it's always a fight, it's always a battle. You feel like you need a break, feel like you need a break. But now the future energy is really quite interesting, is that you've got the King of Cups and you got the Five of Cups. And that's really amazing, guys. I do get the sense that male or female, you might be moving away or trying to move away from some past conflict. One thing that I might get is that if this is some kind of either family or like a past relationship thing, you might have to remain in correspondence with someone. Either that, or you might be trying to move away from that conflict. Like, you really, you have the opportunity for the wheel to turn. You've had opportunities to move forward in your life, but what happens is you're still kind of tied to the past. It's almost like you have to continue to remain in contact with someone. Now, the other thing is when it comes to pages, it can mean children. So it's quite possible that you might still have to, like, you know, talk to someone at a distance, like if you have to text your ex-husband or ex-wife about custody, about picking up the child at a certain time. But it's almost like you have your eye on the future, and you know it's going to be slow and steady. It's going to be, getting away from it's going to take time, but you do still have to communicate. And it's almost like it's also like you have to be on your best behavior when you're communicating with this person, even though, you know, but what you do is you try to make it quick, right? You try to make it quick and succinct. Okay, I'll pick them up on Saturday at this time. Okay, thanks, bye. You are trying to be, but the other thing I kind of get is that you're also trying to build up your money, but as you move forward, I do think that you're learning a lot about your emotions, because you've got the King of Cups. The King of Cups is a very emotionally steady person. Now, one other thing that I can kind of get from this is that, you might feel like there's some kind of missed opportunity in this. Again, if you feel like a relationship has only been on a surface level, you're only texting, it's not really progressing. Also, it could be that, if someone was going real slow with you and it was frustrating, you might, just feel like, okay, I'm done with this. I don't, I don't have the time to wait for someone to just, be all text and no action. And you might actually move on to a different relationship. And the King of Cups is a very good relationship person, but I'm almost getting like this is your energy, because the King of Cups is in control. What it is it's King of Cups is someone very emotionally mature. He knows how he feels. He knows what he's been through, right? So if this is more of your energy, again, maybe you have to continually text someone from your past, or maybe you're trying to move away from some bad relationships or some conflict, but as you move forward, you're very aware of your own feelings. You're very aware of your own feelings, but you're still mourning the loss of something. One other way I can kind of read this is that it's quite possible that maybe you're moving away from a past relationship and you want to go to a new relationship, but you're committed to the past, and it feels really burdensome. It feels like a long journey. Now, both the Knight of Pentacles and the King of Cups are very positive cards. I do think that you're doing the work. But I do think that there's some kind of missed opportunity here in love. Either that, or, again, if you're dealing with someone in this energy, I get a strong sense that you're doing the right thing by yourself. You're going to do what's right, but it does feel like an emotional loss, and it's almost like you have a hard time looking to the future. One other way that I can kind of read this is that this could be a breakup from the past, and you might still be in contact with this person, but what you're doing is you're taking plotting steps towards the future. You want something different, you want something better, but you still get pulled back to the past. And even though you know your emotions and you're in control of your emotions, you're not going to do anything stupid, you're not going to fall back into any bad patterns. It does still feel like a loss to you, right? It's like hard for you to look forward to the future and see the two cups standing. It's like, okay, so I do think that this has been a real lesson in maturity for you. But I can also say that if you're still communicating with someone, even if it's via, direct messages or text messages, that does keep you in the past, right? That does kind of hold you back. It continually puts you back into that, that past conflict. But your cards really exemplify this too, guys, because you got someone is triggering me and I just want to be happy. I just want to be happy, you know? Um, again, the other thing is that maybe you find yourself getting in, maybe you find yourself continually getting into verbal fights with someone and all you want to do is move on with your life. You're tired of the, that same old love, you know, um, you've had enough, you're done, I'm tired of it. But, um, one other way I can read it is that if you're talking to someone that might have some kind of past relationship baggage, it might be very slow going because this person either has to build up their finances or they have to deal with some kind of drama from the past that can't easily, go away. And this might be this person kind of saying, someone's triggering me. I just want to be happy. But if this is your energy, I see that you want to move forward and you're putting in the work, you're putting in the effort to slowly but steady move to a better place to get, especially financially. And I do think that you're very emotionally mature, but you do still have you still feel a loss. You still feel like some kind of mourning over something lost emotionally, and it's almost like someone's triggering you. And I do think that this person might still be reaching out to you somehow, and that's what's the trigger. It's like you can get over someone if they leave you alone and don't talk to you. And, what is it they say? Relationship coaches always say that if you can go a whole year, 365 days without talking to this person, then you can heal. You won't think about them, they won't affect you so much. But it's quite possible that this person is a part of your life, and if there's a child involved or finances involved, and it really does just keep you into the past, no matter how mature you are. But I just want to be happy. The other thing is that with I would say lean on that emotional maturity that you have. You do have 2 cups standing there. There is a potential for happiness in the future. But try not to let this get you down, because the 4 of Swords is really about taking a necessary break, and the Knight of Pentacles is a slow moving energy. You don't have to heal overnight, but just keep going, just keep on swimming. And then the 5 of Cups is really about don't mourn over the past. You have a very bright future. And I think that that. I just think that you kind of get into your feels, especially if someone keeps reaching out to you or trying to talk to you and rehash things. So, wow, guys, oh my gosh, that was powerful. All right. So last but not least, we have the Slow Tarot by Lacey Bryant. And this is a really gorgeous deck. I love it. I love the expression on this girl's face. You see the same, wind blowing in her hair, and, she's barefoot. It's so cute. She's kind of doing that like touche, aha, I gotcha, I gotcha. And with it, you have a bloodstone. So let's go ahead and see, how does the Page of Swords manifest in your life? And I'm just going to give the cards a quick shuffle. So let's just see, in the past, what's your past energy? Okay, thank you. Okay. Present energy. Oh, strength. And future energy. Oh, very good, guys. And the star wanted to pop out. That's wonderful. And let's go ahead and get your card. Okay, you got I'm making the effort, and thank you. Okay. All right, guys. So this is kind of fun, guys. I'm really getting a strong sense here. I'm seeing very positive energy. Seeing really positive energy. What I'm almost getting here is that, the Page of Swords, just like the Ace of Swords, it really is about learning something new. Um, And in the past, you've got the Four of Wands and then the Seven of Cups. So what I'm really getting here, guys, is that I am almost getting kind of like a graduation kind of card. I'm getting a sense that maybe you graduated from high school or graduated from college. Maybe you've been doing the same career for a long time, and all of a sudden you've gotten the motivation to try something new. The other thing is when I see the Page of Swords, I really think of something that gets you excited intellectually, like, just like the Page of Wands, when you get like happy, you get excited like a kid. And you see this, it's almost like this girl is picking up a sword and learning how to fence for the first time, and she's so excited. It's something new. She's kind of waving the sword around like, wow, look at this is the coolest thing. And I love the way that she has her little arm up too. It's almost like, on guard. So what I'm kind of getting here is that in the past you might have reached a plateau in either your career or your understanding of something. Maybe you did really graduate from school, and now you're just kind of looking at what's next. I'm getting a strong sense of what's next. But the Seven of Cups is a very emotional card, and honestly, when you're looking at career or you're looking at your future, that is a very emotional thing. It's almost like okay, where do I go now? What do I want to do? What would fill my cup? What would make me happy, right? And what I'm kind of getting here is that I'm getting the sense that you may not have, had a next step planned. Like, maybe you graduated college and you didn't know exactly what you wanted to do after that. And maybe you took a year off, and, sometimes there are really beautiful bridges in life, and especially this year with all the world events, sometimes we're forced to take a break and really kind of take a time out to evaluate what you want to do. And the Seven of Cups is really that energy. It's like, okay, it's the kind of energy of looking at your choices but not really knowing what to go with. It's a little bit of a foggy energy. And that's okay. There's in astrology we talk about a Neptunian influence, which is ruled by Pisces. And it's very dreamy. It's very like, and that's what I kind of get when I see the Seven of Cups. I think of daydreaming. I think of, what could I imagine myself doing this? Could I imagine myself doing that? Would that make me happy? Would that, pay my bills, And so that's kind of where you were in the past. I think you'd finally graduated, you finally reached the maximum level of your understanding in either a field of education or a field of employment, and you started to look around and say, okay, what would make me happy? And what it is you don't want to choose the wrong cup. You want to choose the right thing that's going to be the next step for you along your path. And what I'm present energy is maybe, how when you have those little interim, periods in life, and it's funny because just like me, okay, I have a tarot channel. And if you told me 5 years ago that I was going to have a tarot channel, I would have raised an eyebrow and looked at you like you were nuts, Because I'd be like, well, I'm a professional person. I have a day job. I have bills. I pay, I have a car note that I pay. But it's like, when you think about it, when you get that little activity, when you get that little side activity that usually comes to you when you least expect it, it is kind of like the Page of Swords. It's kind of like the aha, gotcha. It's like that poke, it's like that poke. Hey, come look at this. This is cool, And the other thing is that, again, I look at her and I think of fencing. And, how many people know how to fence nowadays? Is that, it's not, it's a sport that people still do. It's in the Olympics. But how many people really know how to do it, And I just get the sense that somewhere in your lull between things, you picked up a sword and said, oh, well, this is kind of fun. Let me wave this around. And you found something. you found something where you least expected it. You know, it was like you were walking barefoot through the field, and this looks like fall, right? It looks like a stormy sky, and you found a sword and you picked it up and I was like, wow, this is cool. Um, and what I'm kind of seeing here is because you've got two major arcanas and you've got the Six of Wands. I think that you found something, guys, that really expresses you. Um, the Six of Wands, and again in this card, it's that winning card. She's up on everyone's shoulders, and honestly, it kind of looks like the same girl. It looks like a younger person. I think that you found something that you really like to do. Maybe it's writing, maybe it's a blog, maybe it is something like Instagram or TikTok, and it gave you a good expression. It gave you a good expression. The other thing is that I do think you have other people who support you and look up to you for what you do. Um, and the other thing is that with the Empress, I think that you really nurture people through it. You nurture people through it. Maybe you're another reader here on the other thing I always get a real spiritual vibe from pile 3. I'm not sure why that is. The number 3 in itself is always like, mind, body, spirit, Father, Son, Holy Ghost. Um, but I get a sense that whatever it is that you do, you really nurture people. The other thing is that with strength, when I see the strength card, first off, I love the strength card because there's this beautiful red dress in it. And it's funny, I have a satin red dress that I used to wear that reminds me of this. But um, I always think of Virgo and Leo, or I think of the cusp of that, where Virgos are very industrious, they're hard workers, they're very organized, and then Leos have that flair of they have kind of a natural acting ability. They have a very warm way of expressing themselves. And what I'm almost getting is I get the sense that you found something that expresses your sense of self, and you do have that balance between being really organized and almost like Virgos are very much teachers as well. And the Empress can be a teacher. She's like a mother like energy. Um, the other thing that I kind of get is that all of these cards kind of have flowers in their hair. Like the Empress has stars in her hair, and both the lion and the woman. But I almost get a sense that you gained a sense of strength from this endeavor. And that's really important because when you go through those experiences like, okay, I spent 4 years getting this degree in college, now what do I do? Oh, okay, I'm working at Target. And I don't want that to sound bad. I have a high respect for all jobs. I do not think that there is no such thing as a lowly job. Everybody who does something that contributes. The other thing that I kind of get with this is that with it being the Virgo Leo cusp, and Virgos are good at service. They like to serve. The other thing that I kind of get is that the way that she's kind of holding that lion, I get a strong sense that you help boost other people up. I definitely get a strong sense that maybe, and it doesn't even have to be like a public channel like TikTok or YouTube even, or Instagram. Maybe you go on Facebook and you post a positive post every day. Maybe you host some kind of forum. You know how there's moderators on forums. Like, it's funny. I participate in like 5 different forums. One of my favorite ones on Facebook is Disapproving Corgis. Oh my gosh, that has saved my life. Disapproving Corgis is the cutest. And you don't even have to own a Corgi to join. You submit the request to join and they approve you. And it is the most adorable thing that I've ever seen in my life. But those kind of forums, even though they're small, they grow really quickly and they do such a service for people, but it takes maintenance, right? The other thing that I kind of see is that maybe you act as the secretary or the treasurer for maybe you're the treasurer for Girl Scouts at cookie time, or God bless you, because that's a lot of work. Or maybe again you organize, some kind of, thing on Facebook, or maybe you organize some kind of drive, and especially with times being as they are, maybe you raise money for something. But everybody really looks up to you. The other thing that I get is that people look at you like you're a ray of sunshine. You're a ray of sunshine. One other thing that I can kind of get from this is that maybe if this is pertaining to world events this year, maybe you've really gone out of your way to keep people together. Maybe you put things into the mail, because the other thing is swords is communication. And the other way that I kind of read this too is, and it does not have to be on a big scale. It can be very small. The small little things are so meaningful. Maybe you send little direct messages or emails to people, brightening their day, making sure that they're feeling okay. Because I'll tell you right now, with all of us working remotely, it does something to the psyche, and it's not, I don't think it's necessarily healthy. But, but I do think that people respect you and look up to you for what you do. I think you're like a mother. I think you're very nurturing to people. And I think you not only I think it not only gives you self-esteem, like it makes you feel stronger. It makes you, whatever it is that you do, it makes you feel less lost. It isn't like, okay, well, I flunked out of law school, so now I'm starting, I'm starting this digital Facebook channel or whatever, and because it makes you're proud of what you do. It gives you a sense of strength. The other thing is that I think you give people a sense of strength. I think you share that joy with others, because Leo is very much like that. Leos are very sunny. And I think you do it with communication. It's almost like, again, and I'll tell you right now that when I think of the Page of Swords, I do think of those influencers who are just so fun to talk to. Because again, you don't even have to have a channel for you to do this. What if you just have some kind of social media channel, and all your friends hop on the thread? And we talked about it being real witty responses. What if you're just the funny man in your group, and you make everybody's day brighter? I think we all have that friend, where anytime we're having kind of a gloomy day, let me go over to so and so's, Facebook page and see what she posted today, because she's always sunny, and she's always funny, and she always makes me smile, and the way that she sees the world is always so positive, right? I think it's kind of like that. I think it's like that. I think I'm getting a strong sense that because this is all real mature energy, and this is also a real leader energy. I'm also hearing Gryffindor. I'm hearing Gryffindor. I'm almost getting a little bit of a drama sense, not in a bad way, but like you're not afraid of being in the spotlight. If the other thing is that I think by being in the spotlight, if it helps people feel better, like, I actually have a friend on Facebook. What, just like James Corden, he likes to get into his. He likes to do little videos in his car of him singing along to songs, and oh my gosh, guys, there are some hysterical videos of that. I saw this one video where there were two guys singing along to the Grease song, the 1977, 78, and it's like, you better shape up. Cause I need a man. And it's these two guys walking along like a moving car, almost doing the kiki thing. And they're singing along to Grease. And oh my gosh, guys, if you see this video, I was laughing, crying, because it was so great. And it just lifted my spirits. But what it is it's Page of Swords, because, you got two grown men singing, lip singing. And it's not a mature energy, but it's so lively, and it brings everybody up. It brings everybody up, and again, with that Empress being there, I'm getting a strong sense of nurturing, and I think you share your strength with others. I think what you do not only strengthens you, but you share it with other people, and it's almost like a hug. I get a real warm energy. And now the future's really quite bright. We got the Six of Swords. We got the Six of Swords, and this is really a beautiful card. Now, one thing that I am kind of seeing is that there is a gray sky. There's a gray sky here. So, but you see the light and the lighthouse as you go across. It's almost like the sky is getting brighter. So maybe this is in light of some kind of troubled time. Maybe it is related to 2020. Maybe, maybe your career choice is kind of delayed. One way I kind of read this too is that I really do think that the universe throws you detours. They get you to slow down with world events. Not to say that a pandemic is a welcome thing. Of course not. My heart goes out to everyone who is affected by this, and our due diligence is to keep people safe. And believe me, we're all going stir crazy. It's very, very hard on everyone, but to serve other people, we'll do what we got to do. But I almost get a sense that, again, I get a sense that you came across this unexpectedly, and it almost became a thing that you do to cheer people up. And the sky is going to get brighter. And I think the other thing is that there are more than one person in this boat. So maybe you are. One other thing that I kind of see here is that if you are a mom, it could be you doing little things to kind of keep your family happy or to keep those around you happy. And then in the future, we're moving on to things are going to get better. Things are going to get better. The other thing that I kind of see is that you will eventually find land, right? You're not going to feel lost at sea forever. You're gonna head in the direction. The other thing I kind of get from this is that this is not wasted time. You're heading in the direction. What you do is cultivating you, right? It's cultivating you, and it's cultivating skills within you that you'll use that will help you on your journey. And I just think that you're gonna find land, right? You're gonna get where you're going, and this is part of that, right? It's part of your trajectory. Now, what I'm also seeing here is that your two cards are really great. It says, I'm making the effort and thank you. So what I kind of get here is that, again, maybe you've been feeling a little bit lost, and whatever it is that you're doing feels kind of small, but you are making an effort, right? It isn't that, again, maybe you've got a degree as a doctor and you're not really using it right now, or, well, you're probably really using it right now, but that's a bad example. But, again, maybe you just feel like you're kind of in between, and you're kind of feeling like, okay, what am I doing? Am I just spinning my wheels? This seems so immature. Why am I? I almost think of like when you watch the biographies on a lot of these TikTok celebrities. They were planning to go to college, and then they quit and moved to LA so they can continue their TikTok channel. And but it is a moment in life. It's a moment in life, right? If you put something that seems more important on the back burner for a year or two to do something that on the surface seems frivolous, but is so important right now, because you are developing skills, you are making the effort, you are going somewhere. That's what I really get. You are going somewhere. This is not wasted time. And you're not only cultivating skills within yourself, but I think you are really contributing to other people. And the other thing is that it's fun in a juvenile way. And the other thing that I kind of get with Leos is that they are real children at heart. They have big hearts, like they're very giving. I'm getting a strong sense of giving, but I also think that what you give gives back to you because people really look up to you. The other thing that I'm real getting is that there's a strong leadership here. And it's so funny. It's almost like the little kind of pingy things that you do that seems a little childish. People really, they look at you like a leader. They look at you like an earth mother, and they look at you like a winner, like you're the person that I don't know. I'm getting a strong sense that people really respect what you do, that they respect what you do, and it's related to your communication. The other thing is that you're a totally mature person, but you're kind of the way that you remain playful, the way that you engage people. is real important. But I do think that these times are getting better. I think that this talent has almost been forged during tough times, you know, during times of change. And the other thing that I do get is that you will eventually move past this. Like you'll move past this and you'll look back and say, yeah, remember those years when I did this or when I had my TikTok channel? Eventually you'll look back on it fondly and you'll be grateful for it, right? You know, with the thank you, you'll be grateful that you took that time out and that you did it, that you experienced that, right? And I think that I do get a strong sense that you've impacted other people. You've really been a hero, you know, by doing whatever it is that you did. But you've got a bright future ahead of you. The thing that I'm almost getting is that the other thing that I'm kind of getting is that you're almost going to be reluctant to move on. It's going to feel a little bittersweet when you finally do get back to your, you know, your doctorate degree, you know, because you are going to have the opportunity to go ahead and move forward. And, you know, it might be a little bit hard to leave behind, but it's part of your journey. It's part of your path, and it's gonna be a really, you know, beautiful gem in the path of your lifetime. All right, guys. So wow, that, oh gosh, these videos keep getting longer and longer, but I hope that you really enjoyed, and I hope that you got something out of the reading. I am going to be back on Saturday with the weekly energy card reading. I hope that you have a good week, and I hope you can join me then, and see you in the next video. Bye.